Welcome to the Kindness Project, the podcast designed to share stories of kindness and share how kindness can make positive change in our world, one small act at a time.
This week on the Kindness Project, we talk about cheese puns, gorillas in the mist, and part 2 of our interview with Mark and Ruth Chitty from Umunandi.
Welcome, listeners, to the Kindness Project. I'm one of your hosts, Chris Dames. Joining me today is Charlotte Dames. How are you, Charlotte?
You forgot to use the funny intro. That's the funniest part.
I'm trying to do a professional introduction to the Kindness Project.
Since when has this ever been professional?
Since this week. I'm bored of our shambolic nonsense and
Shame I'm not.
Oh God! Right, there's somebody listening to the podcast who's going, "Oh look, they're speaking really quietly this week. I'm going to turn it down a bit or turn it up a bit," and then suddenly you just go, "Shame I'm not." Welcome, listeners. I did try. Okay, I did try to make it a little more professional, but obviously Charlotte doesn't want to do that. So,
Why?
yeah, true. So, I am
constructive with your criticism.
I am. Oh, Flight of the Conchords reference. High five. I'm joined by a girl whose favourite word is shame. It's Charlotte Dames.
And I am joined by the father of the dad jokes. It's Chris Dames.
Oh, God, I love that. The best dad joke is obviously the pun, isn't it? The pun is the best dad joke ever. What's your favourite pun?
Cheese puns. There's just unlimited cheese puns.
Cheese puns. Very specific. Cheese puns. I like cheese puns, but I used to not like them. I didn't give any damn.
We're not having that. A lot better than they do now.
Oh God! Oh, I think cheese puns are brilliant. No, are we having that? No, we're not. Okay, that's fine. Why do you like the word shame? Where did that come from?
Funny, because we've having this conversation about inappropriate responses to someone telling you they loved you, and the first thing that came into my mind was shame.
And what other inappropriate responses did you have to somebody telling you that they loved you?
Who wouldn't?
Who wouldn't, right? Okay. So does your mum?
So that was your one. Because we kept playing this game while we were on holiday, and actually annoyed mum a little bit.
Yeah.
And I was like, right, I'm gonna get dad to do one. I'm like, oh, I love you, and he just goes.
So does your mum. But that's true. That is true. You love me and mum loves me, so that's all good. And I love you both too. We were talking about this the other day. I think one of the kindest things you could ever do is just spend the time every day making a conscious effort to tell the people who are closest to you, shame. I mean, no.
How much you care about
how much you're embarrassed of them. No, how much you love them. Just those 3 simple words, I love you, I think just... and I know... It's really weird because I know that like you roll your eyes sometimes and you turn around and go, and Sophie goes, "Dad, I know, you keep on telling me," and there's a reason I keep on telling you. I don't want you to ever forget that I love you. So I might change your habit to once a day, to once every 15 minutes. I might just kick the door down in your classroom and go, "Charlotte, love you."
Send me a text. What's up? Send me a text. I will feel the vibration and know what you were saying.
You don't take your phone into school, do you?
Yeah.
What, into classes?
Yeah, it just stays in my pocket on silent.
Are you allowed to do that?
Yeah.
Since when?
As long as you don't take it out of your pocket and use it in class, you're allowed to have it.
Are you really? I thought you had to sort of put in some sort of black hole when you went into school and...
You just kind of pull it out. Just like... I have this magical black hole thing I can just put my bag in and don't have to carry it. I can just kind of reach it.
You're being very expressive this week for a podcast. It's like looking at a musical.
I love a musical.
Yeah, the Kindness Project, the musical.
That'd be a lot.
So, would we like to do the jingle for?
Question of the podcast. Woo!
So this question of the podcast is, what's your favourite animal-related story? Now, considering my experience with swans recently, I thought that might be an interesting one. So what we'd like to hear, listeners, is experiences where you've got into an altercation with an animal, if you've sort of annoyed an animal, if you've had a animal save you and do something really good. Any kindness related animal story is good, but also any funny related animal story would be really useful. So hit us with your animal related stories.
Hit us with your best shot.
Hit us with your best shot of goose. I don't know, whatever extra points for unusual animals. If anybody comes out with a koala related animal story, they get bonus points.
I chased a peacock around the zoo the other day.
The other day? You make it sound like you do it all the time. You know what happened the other day? Chased a peacock around the zoo. How did that happen?
I think they were just wandering around the zoo when we were in Italy, and it and its babies were kind of walking around. I just kind of walked around behind them, started taking pictures of them.
So you didn't really chase it around, you joined its family.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, I'm now a peacock. Charlotte, we're going now. I am now a part of the peacock family. I will not be coming home to England. I'm going to stay in Italy and be a peacock.
They will lock me in a cage eventually, but I do not care. I get to be with my new family.
So what? On that note, and this isn't a question of the podcast, but if you'd like to answer it, listeners, you can. If you could join a family of animals and live with them for a little while, what animal would you pick?
Beavers.
Beavers? Why beavers?
They live in a stream. I could just swim them out and pack that down with those twigs.
Yeah, but they work hard.
No, my teeth are going to kill.
I'd pick monkeys. You've got to go for monkeys. I'd be like the Diane Fossey of London Zoo.
What?
Have you never seen Gorillas in the Mist?
No.
Oh, Charlotte, you've got to give it a watch.
Is it like Rise of the Planet of the Apes?
No, it's not like Rise of the Apes. It's a story. Is it like Rise of the Planet of the Apes? It's a story of a lady who did called Diane Fossey, who did loads of conservation work with gorillas in the mist. And there were poachers. Watch a movie. It's an awesome film. And on the note of you comparing Gorillas in the Mist to Planet of the Apes, I'd suggest we move on. So, should we have a little bit of kindness news?
Yes. Okay, let me do the intro.
Go on.
No nonsense this time.
No nonsense. Okay. Let's break the habit of a podcast.
You might get a little bit of nonsense.
Go on then.
Kindness news. Haha. Coffee edition.
Coffee edition. Oh, I am loving coffee edition already. Would you like to start with your first story?
Yes. The note this woman received from a stranger is a reminder of the power of small acts of kindness. Queuing up at a coffee shop, exhausted and unable to function before your morning coffee, it can be easy to forget to leave a little extra room for kindness. But Mackenzie Mauler warmed a woman's heart and received an unexpected thank you when she took a moment to think beyond her own need for caffeine. The Ohio student simply paid for the stranger behind
Love
her
that.
coffee at the Starbucks drive-thru, not knowing how big a difference her small acts of kindness would make. Yesterday, I bought coffee for a lady behind me at Starbucks. Later in the day, I found this in my mailbox. Small acts can make a big difference, folks. Spread some kindness. Later that day, she received a grateful, kind-hearted note in the mail explaining how much the coffee meant to the woman. The moving story got everyone emotional. So sweet, so thoughtful. Isn't it amazing how the slightest act of kindness can make a huge difference in someone's day? Maybe let's all do that tomorrow. Not for a thank you note, but also so sweet, but because we should. Thanks for the example. That was Blonde Karen.
Right, okay.
Thanks for sharing.
So what did the note say?
It doesn't say.
All right, okay.
Thanks for sharing this wonderful story, Mackenzie. You're a great example of how we should treat one another. We need more good stories like this. You made my day. Thank you. Even Nicola Clausen, the woman who sent the letter, got in touch. Thank you for the coffee, finding me, since we're neighbours. Thank me for writing you a card and offering to babysit on top of everything else to help me out. You truly are the sweetest and most wonderful person who deserves it. Mauler, who is studying flight technology at Kent State University, told us why she bought the coffee for a stranger. Doesn't say anything else.
Okay, so that tiny, tiny, tiny act of kindness, just buying somebody else coffee, is a lovely thing to do. I really, really like it. I wonder what coffee it was. Well, I wonder what coffee it was. Was it an Americano? Was it a cappuccino? No, don't know. What's your next caffeine-related act of kindness?
Teenagers' act of kindness for women in Starbucks.
Teenagers?
Yeah. She's throwing me off now. Thanks a lot. Teenagers' act of kindness for women in Starbucks goes viral. Last week, a 19-year-old student from Ohio carried out an act of kindness by buying a coffee for a stranger in Starbucks. While this may have seemed like a very small deed for the teenager, oh no, it's the same one.
You give me the same story.
It's been posted twice.
Ah, right, okay. So it was a teenager who did it, was it?
Yeah, but it's been rewritten completely differently with different quotes. So read out the different quotes, so I didn't notice it first because I didn't read the name.
Okay.
Thank you for the coffee. I rarely go. This is what the note says. Thank you for the coffee. I rarely go to Starbucks and treat myself, but the last couple of months have been a bit of a struggle. The woman, Nicole Clausen, explained that her father had recently passed away and that he'd usually look after her children while she went to work. I decided to buy my kids breakfast and get myself a coffee with total guilt because I am going to be a stay-at-home mum for a while.
Right.
Clausen broke down in tears after discovering that Morla had paid for her coffee. She later happened to find out where Morla lived as she spotted her pulling into a home a few houses away from her own.
So she was literally like two doors up or whatever. Yeah.
I felt it necessary for you to know that what you did for me was more than just a coffee.
Love it. But it's not the coffee, it's the thought of consideration. It's a thought of coffee. It's a thought of being considerate enough to go, you know what, I'm going to do something really nice for you. So yeah, that sounds really good. Coffee-related kindness news.
Yes.
So this week, Charlotte, we're going to have the second part of the interview with Mark and Ruth, who run a charity called Umunandi.
Yes.
We spoke to them last week and asked them loads of questions about the charity. They effectively the charity effectively runs a school. It does really good work with vulnerable kids and orphan kids in Zambia. The school's called the Green Park Trust School, and we're going to find out a lot more about it during the second part of this interview, as well as asking Mark and Ruth their answers to our world famous, maybe not world famous, but famous questions of the podcast. Shall we listen?
Yeah.
Exactly. So those parents very specifically choose Green Park out of a sort of social conscience, if you like.
Yeah.
So those children will always come to the school, and of course that's why it's also really important for Green Park and us to make the school appealing so that we can attract fee-paying schools. So it's got to have really good teachers.
Yeah.
It's got to have good facilities.
Yeah.
So those are those children, and they will come whatever. As far as Felix has his one principle is that he will not turn a child away from school.
Okay.
So there are many things that are brilliant about that, and there are many things that are tricky about that, because obviously that means that you always have more children than you have money for.
Yeah.
But Felix is very, very strict about that.
Okay.
As for the children that go, so there's a sort of sliding scale. There are parents that pay full fees.
Yeah.
Then there are parents that pay full fees but always late, because they don't have the money, or they take time to get the money. Then there are parents who pay half or pay some when they can. So one of the things that once very struck me was, we were with Felix and he was talking about a mother. She had 5 children, I think. She didn't have, her husband was dead.
Okay.
And every day she walked out of Matiro into the sort of, well, I suppose you'd call it countryside. Scrubland. And she harvested sweet potatoes.
Okay.
On a little plot of land that she had there. So she'd bring them back, and then she would sell the sweet potato, and then the family would eat the tops of the potato. And I was saying, well, that sounds like a pretty bad scenario. Surely her kids could go on the list. And Felix was like, no, because she does have access to making money.
Yeah.
So he's also quite strict about who gets on the sponsorship scheme.
Gotcha.
So they have that, there are some the children who get on the scheme tend to be in a very, very difficult situation.
Yeah, it's interesting.
And then Gertrude has been trained as a social worker.
Yes.
herself. So the school has three directors, Felix and Lister, who are a husband and wife, and then Gertrude is an old friend of theirs.
Yeah.
Gertrude is a trained social worker, and they're all, her and Lister in particular, all three of them are active in the local community. And so they simply know, when if a parent has died recently, if kids have been left alone, or if a new family's moved in with another family, and they'll go out and they'll visit them and they'll assess the need, and the list of kids that need sponsoring is regularly updated and shuffled, and people, with higher need will move higher up the list.
And how long do the kids stay in the school?
So when we first went there, they were there from sort of nursery age up until they took their grade 9 exams.
Okay.
What we then did was when we came along, we talked with Felix and Lister, and we started like a baby class, because obviously if you've got an older child whose both parents are dead and they have small siblings to look after, babies, they can't come to school unless
Gotcha. Yeah, understand
that. So we then started like a baby class, but the actual age range in the school is from babies to, I think Fanwell is the oldest, and he's 24.
Okay.
Bit of an outlier, but still, he really wanted to complete his education. And a lot of what you find that's very different from the UK is that every grade, every class has a wide range of ages in it. Yeah. So there'll be some kids, if you take grade 5, there'll be some kids that are 8 or 9 in it, and there'll be some kids that are 15 or 16.
Because they're starting at different ages, right?
And
Gotcha.
Their education's been interrupted for 2 years.
Yeah, gotcha. Understand that. So tell me a story about how the school's made a really significant impact in somebody's life.
So,
sounds like there's a few though, right?
There is really many, but this is a particularly lovely one, I think. So when we first were at the school, so obviously we did our initial visit, we came back to England, and then we took our kids out of school and went back. So then we were there for a period of months. And during that time, right at the beginning of that time, a woman came to Felix, and I also met her there. Her name was Mrs. Kambashi, and she said that she was dying and her husband was dead, and she asked Felix if he would promise to educate her children, because she was aware that obviously if they didn't have any education, they would have nothing. Her youngest was 8, I think, at the time, Gift. And Felix and us, for me, that was, as a mother, that was unbelievably powerful experience to meet this woman and to put myself in her shoes and how I would feel. So, of course, we said yes. And all 4 of the children then went through school. And 3 years ago now, we went back to see Gift, because he had just finished his last year at school, and he walked through the doors to see us, and there was this young, fit, healthy, shining young man who had, as a result of the school, had completed his education, his sister's training as a nurse. He now went on to get sponsorship to finish the rest of his education. Their whole family as a unit are this incredible little sort of example of tenacity and care, and all that the school was able to give them. Felix would go in the evenings to give them food. And what is very beautiful is then what happened was about 18 months ago, a family next door to the Kambashis, both the parents, I think one parent had already died and then the mother died, and they left a little 5-year-old called Raphael. And Gift took, the family of these 4 kids took Raphael in, because his family was from the Congo and they had no other family.
Amazing.
So they informally adopted little Raphael and then brought him to Felix and said, Raphael needs to go to school. So Raphael is now in school, he's sponsored. So it's this sort of what happens, when, this, and I know this is a bit wishy-washy in some way, but this idea of kindness, of love, of care, that the influence that it has out out there. So in Mrs. Kambashi coming and asking for her children to be educated, the ongoing benefit
Yeah.
is a kind of really, and just to see these kids, who I remember going to Gift's little house. They had one double bed for all of them.
Yeah.
And blank, just it's like a shack, but on the wall was the school timetable.
Gotcha.
And that's what he,
focused on.
Yeah, so that's a kind of and that's ongoing, because now, although all the Kambashi children have left, Raphael is in school.
You know what, Ruth? You said something interesting there, because you talked about kindness being wishy-washy and ephemeral. I actually think kindness is infectious. I genuinely like sort of that story to me illustrates how important it is to give people support in times of need, because that stuff spreads, right? That
Catching.
Yeah, it's infectious, isn't it? It's infectious.
Absolutely. And I think also that real sense of when I guess for Gift, because such a gift had been given to him, that he wanted to. There was no question for him about taking Raphael in.
Yeah, because
of the kindness that had been shown to him,
and the impact on his life, right? He knew how much of a difference he could make. So what's the ideal for you? Like, so how many current sponsors have you got? How does sponsorship work? And what are you looking for as an ideal to continue to support the school?
We've got slightly less than 90 sponsors at the moment. Sponsoring children as they go through the school. We've got a waiting list of at least 80 kids who need sponsorship. And so the more sponsors that we can get, the better. It's really very straightforward. And what the sponsorship does, obviously, it's life-changing for those individual children, but it also, every single new sponsor that we get just adds another brick in the wall in the solidity of Umunandi and Green Park School in Zambia, because it provides income for the school. That means the school, as well as educating that child, can also get better at paying the teachers on time, improve the infrastructure, be more attractive to other fee-paying children to come to the school. So there's a positive snowball effect of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think as we look to the future, our kind of absolute dream would be to expand and build. So we would love to build a new school that also has a health clinic, that has the facilities for people to bring maize to be grounded into their daily, what they eat every day.
And very importantly, runs up to secondary.
Goes up.
So the education system in Zambia at the moment is primary up to grade 9, and then secondary from grade 10 up to grade 12.
Which is like A-levels.
And at the moment, we for children that graduate out of Green Park School at grade 9, we try and follow them through to getting a place, and some of our sponsors keep sponsoring them through in other schools to complete their secondary education. It would be so much better if we could continue that within Green Park School itself. But to do that, we need to invest in more school buildings and so on to be able to accommodate.
Gotcha. I mean, at the moment, the school always has a room available with just a mattress on the floor for any kids who are like in an emergency or fleeing violence or really in a bad situation. And there's normally children in that room. And we would obviously love to have a safe house for children. Little Phyllis, she was 8, looking after, I think one brother was 5 and one was 18 months old, living alone. We would love to be able to provide accommodation so that she's safe sort of within the school. So not like an orphanage, but kind of somewhere there where there's a house mother.
Yeah.
Where, the children can stay. I mean, Phyllis is hugely at risk in her situation.
So that's like a sort of a maternal and paternal support outside of the school, because it sounds like the school isn't just school; it's family as well, isn't it? Really?
It is. Yeah. Really, when you go there, you really see it. Like all the teachers, their relationship with the kids. The way they interact with them. You ask any teacher about any child and they'll tell you their situation. They're very responsive, because obviously situations change enormously in that kind of, it's quite a dangerous environment just in terms of of health, or when there a lot of accidents take place there. So we actually lost a girl in the school because she was hanging out her washing on what she thought was disused electric power cables.
Right.
And then one day they weren't disused, and she was electrocuted as she hung her washing. So the level of accidents is very high in comparison to what we would be used to here.
Gotcha.
And then of course you have HIV, which is a really significant issue there.
Yeah.
And then like the school actually there was a huge cholera outbreak this year, earlier in January this year.
Yeah.
And the school was closed, so all schools in Lusaka were closed to try and contain the
not
outbreak.
spread. Yeah.
If you've got health issues and then you get cholera, there's no sanitation. That many, they share long drops. The level of
Hygiene. Yeah.
It's not running water. There's a lot of issues. So the school is definitely a sort of, it's like a community of everything, not just education.
Gotcha. And the costs are relatively low to sponsor a child, aren't they? I mean, sort of £17 a month, is it?
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And that's it creeps up from time to time. We try, and when we're talking to sponsors, there's also the option of adding in a food package into that takes it up to around £20 a month.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you compare that to how we spend that kind of money in the West.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
And the difference in value, the difference in impact that £20 a month has out there compared to another few beers on a night or a few coffees, it's just huge.
Yeah, massive. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's sort of trite, isn't it? We hear it so much, don't we? I think we become a bit immune to it. But it actually does change someone's life. Like, it actually does. It goes from a kid on their own in that community trying to make their way.
Yeah.
To being in school, to having an education, to having a future.
Yeah, just giving somebody a life that they didn't expect for £20 a month seems pretty good value to me, to be honest.
Well, doesn't it? Exactly.
And I think the difference to them is like, there's moments in our lives when, you've completed a bunch of exams, or you've gone through, you have a big job interview, and if you land a big job, that's the thing that's going to change your life, and the level of excitement and the difference that makes to your horizon. That's the kind of difference that this money makes to the kids.
Certainly. Absolutely.
We have this kid called Isaac who his dad had died, and his mum looked after him and his brother, and I went to see her because there was this issue because she was very poorly, that he needed to come to school, and I happened to have some uniforms on me, and honestly, if you'd seen the face of this kid, it was like I'd given him the best
present ever. Yeah, gotcha.
And his mum died, and so he now lives in his little shack, and the fact that he can come to school, I mean, I kind of just wish I could take you, because then you would just see, what that is for that little chap, And the thing is, I always say, that they're kids like any other kids, they'll snuggle into you. They want care. They want, they're quite tough, but they have to be. But they are just kids. They just want to play. I mean, when we installed playground equipment in the school, I mean, you should have seen the joy. It was phenomenal.
Tough but loving. It sounds like you've described my 6-year-old just there. How often, you mentioned about just being inspired by going back and just not only sort of hearing the stories of these kids, but meeting the people involved and being able to sort of share their lives to a certain extent. How often do you get to go back, and how does that tend to work?
So over the 10 years we've been doing this, the longest we've left it is 18 months.
Okay.
Typically,
That was once.
typically we're there every year.
Okay.
And actually that's really essential because it keeps the relationship alive. Umunandi's a small charity. We work specifically with Green Park School. We do this one thing in this one place, and it's very much centred around the relationship that exists between us in the UK and the directors of the school in Zambia. And it's about what Umunandi does is we create a bridge between people in the UK and these kids who need help in Zambia, and keeping that bridge alive and open and transparent. It's really important to go there every year.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, no.
To see the need, and also, I mean, for Ruth and I, quite personally, it's a phenomenal thing to do.
Yeah.
We sometimes have a bit of heart sink. Oh no, we haven't done enough, and because you're always catching up. The need's always bigger than you can meet it.
Yeah.
You're always kind of running and sort of thinking, oh, we haven't done this, we haven't done that. But then when you get there, and particularly, last year we saw Gift, and we saw that, him with Raphael, and you see things like that, and you really go, wow, something's happening.
Yeah, this is a huge impact,
I
isn't
had
it?
a moment actually when I saw Gift, which was I was standing. If you stand at the gates of the school looking out, what you see is a lot of children not in school. You see a lot of poverty, terrible poverty. I mean, eye-popping poverty.
Yeah.
Just chaos, really. So I was standing looking out thinking, oh my God, look at all these kids that we're not reaching. Look at all the work that needs to be done. feeling quite kind of
Overwhelmed. Yeah, I get that.
And I turned around, and there in front of me is the whole school of 200 and whatever kids.
Gotcha.
And a thriving community, and it's really important sometimes to have. That's what happens when we go out there. It's that, oh, look at all what is being done, which is kind of really important to do.
I think the interesting thing is it's that bite-sized chunks thing, isn't it? Just like what else can we do that's like tiny but next? Do you know what I mean? And like we're not gonna help thousands of people tomorrow, but if we can help one and then turn it into 10 and then turn it into 100 and then sort of go from there, that sort of that it never starts with the big. It starts with a big pitch potentially, but it never starts with helping people immediately. And do you think being a smaller charity means that there's a lot of, I mean, a lot of the conversations we're having on the podcast with interviewees actually is about seeing the impact of giving and being in a situation where there's certain cynicism at the minute around larger charities where potentially money doesn't get spent the way it should do. Do you think, what are the challenges with being a smaller charity, but also what are the advantages, do you think?
I think for us, one of the things that when we started the charity, we started it because of effectively one woman, Mrs. Kambashi, coming and asking us about her 4 children. So it started very much looking at a very specific need. And because it started like that, and it was just Mark and I, it kind of has that at its heart, really. Yeah. So that's the advantage of it, is it can't get lost in all the big stuff.
Yeah, gotcha.
Do you see what I mean? So, and I think that's very helpful. There's very, very clear focus, and it's built on absolute relationships and friendship and love, actually. That's at its heart. So it doesn't, I think if you look at big organizations that are fettered by all the organizational kind of processing, so we have none of that.
Yeah.
Because we're very small. And also the other thing is that there's a very, very direct link. So, we have a group of little old ladies in Plymouth who pay £2 each, and there's enough of them for that to end up being £20 for a child. So they feel this really direct link. Every time we go, I write to the sponsors and I say, I give them updates about their children. We're kept in touch with Felix. They get letters from the children that they sponsor.
Yeah.
Absolutely. People would, when I give someone the name of a child, I've probably met the child and I can say, yes, this about the child.
Gotcha.
What you said, Chris, about kindness and wanting to see the change, I think that's what the advantage of being small is that we can provide a very direct link between the money that a donor or a sponsor gives and the change in the child's life that money is affecting.
Yeah.
The gap between the giving and the change happening is small because we're small. Whereas in larger charities, there's a lot of process.
There's layers, isn't there?
There's many more layers in between, so it becomes a bit more anonymised.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of course, the disadvantages are that it is a very small team of people. It's basically Mark and I, and then we have a team of great trustees, and we're now, we're built. So we had this group of kids that came out with us. We're taking more people out now, which obviously when someone goes there and sees it, they're
engaged and want to get involved. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that's really helpful. But certainly, I mean, I can say personally, the disadvantage of the being small is I have had innumerable nights where I wake up in the night thinking about one of the children or some of the children and just think, oh my God, it's quite a
heavy burden.
Yeah, it can be.
And the constraint on the resources, the biggest resource is a problem is actually, I mean, money is, of course, we can always put more money to good effect, but it's also time.
Yeah, spot on.
Time to communicate, to organise things, to make stuff happen.
We both have work, so it's not that if we don't do this. This is our sort of on the side hobby.
And I think for me that's the biggest frustration.
Yeah.
There's always more things to do than I have time for.
And time's the most limited resource, isn't it? So the money you can.
Where I think if we look forward over the next 5 years, I do want to scale up what Umunandi is doing. More in terms of the number of people who are actually getting stuff done in the organisation.
Yeah, gotcha.
So that we can move faster and more things can happen.
Yeah.
Our long-term vision is that Umunandi, it becomes redundant. Umunandi, the UK charity, we want Green Park School to become
self-sustainable
and economically viable in and of itself. Now that's going to require investment in its infrastructure, but the leadership is in place, the vision is in place, the need is there. So it's
just getting the model right, isn't it?
Yeah, and in a kind of social interest and community sort of organisation perspective, it's a great business opportunity.
But Mark, do you think that if that were to occur, and like Ruth said, you'd look out, like you'd turn away from the school and go, right, that's sorted now. You'd look out into the road and go, right, we need another 12 of these.
Most probably.
And mix myself a nice long gin and tonic first.
Yeah, exactly. Just the one, yeah?
I think one of the things that we took this group of young people out from England out there. One of those, particularly a young girl, Beth, she was so moved by what she saw that she has been back since on her own.
Yeah.
And now she has a job washing pots and pans in a local cafe, and she uses that money to sponsor a child there.
Awesome.
And and there's another young person, Amra, who we took out with us last year, who was absolutely, completely blown away. Life change for her. So my kind of dream, if you like, is to also create a community that we can hand Umunandi over to.
Yeah.
We've done this now for 10 years. It's kind of a huge part of our life, and it always will be. But I think everything needs some new freshness. And
new ideas, fresh blood, and also people to take the sort of the responsibility of. Because I'd imagine, as you say, you sort of get those 3 o'clock in the morning, sort of wake up in a cold sweat, going, "How can I help more?" Yeah, I get that.
Absolutely. So for me, my kind of, a vision and dream would be, and I'm not sort of putting this all on Beth and Amara's shoulders unless they're listening, and then I really am putting it on their shoulders. But I would really love them or somebody like them to kind of go
take it on,
take it on, because I think anything that's got new energy behind it, and obviously we'll always be involved. Felix and Lister are our kind of our brother and sister, so we have a huge love and friendship with them. But
I think to take that forward, we've got experience that we would like to share with, as you say, the new blood. So it's not a question of stepping out entirely, and there's so much to do out there. But absolutely, as you say, it's about equipping other people to carry the flame forward.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. So you've told me sort of what the aspiration is and what the future plans are. Before I share with our podcast listeners about how people can find out more about you and the charity, we do a thing on the podcast where we have a question of the podcast every week.
Cool.
And it's non-kindness related, but just because Charlotte and I are quite curious people, we just like to ask our listeners and our podcast guests just some questions just to gauge your thoughts. So just very quick fire, just feel free to let me know. What's the most inspiring movie ever?
Inspiring movie. The slavery one. What is it? Amazing Grace.
Amazing Grace.
Oh, right, okay, I've not seen that.
Oh yeah, it's about William Wilberforce. I mean, it's how one man can fire up a movement that can change something.
Oh, cool. Yeah, very good. What's your favourite piece of trivia?
Oh,
Favourite piece of trivia. Right. So my mind goes completely blank.
You're not alone. You're not alone.
Font of useless information, Chris. But right now,
Yeah, well, you didn't know. You know what? I keep this intentionally surprising so we get really authentic answers.
coming. I didn't see that coming.
No, all right, no. Feel free to let us know. The most we've asked a bunch of questions that are kindness related, like most people generally good. We've asked a bunch of different questions. We've got 2 questions that, without a shadow of a doubt, we've got about 120 answers on one and about 80 on the other, and they are: what's your favourite biscuit?
Well, it's going to have to be a Zambian one.
Okay, cool. I like it.
Zambian one. There's a few Zambian ones. There's one called a tennis biscuit, which is particularly good. And then what is that one? That chocolate creamy one with
really
coconut.
good. Yeah, there's also a biscuit called the salty crack,
Which amused us immensely.
It's great. I'm not even going to go down the road about what it tastes like.
Just leave it there.
And then the most popular question we've ever had on the podcast is, who's your favourite Muppet?
Oh,
Well, I'm terribly sorry. I have actually this is a confessional. I have actually never seen. the
yeah.
Muppets.
But for me, it's clearly Kermit.
See, we had people, and I didn't know whether to like sort of draw a line on this. We had people pick characters from Sesame Street as well. So I didn't know, because it's Jim Henson. We didn't know whether to include or not. And
Keep it broad. That's what I would say.
keep it broad, yeah. No, it was, yeah. We included that. My one's obviously Animal is the best. I mean, without a shadow of a doubt.
I like Kermit because he's like a bit misunderstood.
Yeah. No, I like that. And last one, what's the best use of an egg?
Oh, to poach it.
Poach it, and how would you?
Grow it and then paint it and hang it on a tree.
Very nice, Mark. What do you think?
To throw at politicians.
Well, we funny enough, we did have who's your favourite Muppet? Somebody did pick Donald Trump. So that was a good choice. That was a good choice.
I missed that opportunity.
Yeah. So we do our listeners are quite witty like that. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Really appreciate it. I've really enjoyed it. And I look forward to catching up with you soon.
Yeah, lovely. Thanks, Chris.
No worries. Bye. So that was the second half of the interview. Did you enjoy that?
Yeah. It's over. It's all over now.
Fool if you think it's over, because we've got the question of the podcast.
Ooh, yeah.
God, we really shouldn't sing.
No.
This is lesson 1 in how to lose listeners from your podcast. But we have got the answers from last week's question of the podcast. Would you like to do the jingle?
Last week.
The end!
The end is nigh.
Yeah.
Last week's question this week. I just stick with that.
Cool. Okay. No sort of.
Question of the podcast.
Okay, fair enough.
Previous.
And this is the question of the podcast last week was actually one of my favourite questions ever. I love this question.
Okay, what is
and
it?
it's a question that I think everybody should think about. It's, if you had complete control of your time and money was unlimited, what would you spend your time doing? And we had a bumper response on this one, so should we just dive straight in?
Yes.
Okay.
So
fair
I
enough.
didn't think you were waiting for a response.
Dave Forsdyke said, I'd split my time between spending time with my wife, playing golf, making music, and helping my church in the local community. Do you want to do the next one?
Kath Keat.
Yep.
She said she'd definitely travel the world with her kids.
I think I'd do that as well. We are going to Japan, but there's a lot more on the list, isn't there? We need to. Yeah, where else would we travel?
I think we should do a European train trip.
Oh yeah, the ETT European train trip. We've got to do that.
Yes.
And I think maybe we want to go back to America as well. Tamsin Kane said, I love this question. She'd spend time with her friends and family, walking in the countryside, travelling, eating fabulous food, and volunteering more than I have time to at the moment at a rugby club and in the wider community. Do you want to do Heidi's one?
Well, if I can see it right. Heidi Ball. I'd probably do some volunteer work. Go out at the local school. Oh, I missed a word there. Go out
at the local school.
Go help out at the local school.
It's not a nightclub, Heidi. Go out raving at the local school. Go help out, you mean?
Yes, go help out at the local school, something like that. And sunny holidays with the kids. Maybe even take Dan along.
Well, it's always like up in the air whether you take your husband along, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? I'm sure Cassie would have something to say about that. Alan Bowley said he'd probably do some travelling to places I've always wanted to go but could never afford on civil service wages. Civil service wages aren't good, are they, really? He'd treat friends and family, and cheesy as it may sound, have laser eye surgery to correct my sight. Doesn't sound cheesy. No, it's fine.
Sounds good.
Sounds like quite an awesome thing to do. John Cook said,
I'd give as much as possible to worthy causes. Pubs are worthy causes.
Pubs are worthy causes. Well done, John. Cassie's answered. I had a conversation with Cassie, who's my wife and Charlotte's mum, about coming on the podcast, but she is way too shy, apparently, to come on the podcast. And one of our previous guests, Chris Laney, apparently was trying to persuade us to come on the podcast yesterday as well. But instead of coming on the podcast as a potential podcast host, she just decided to come in. Hashtag get Cassie on the podcast.
We should start that.
Yeah, definitely. So Cassie said, would definitely spend more time with my family, make financial provision for my girls, niece and nephew, so they have a less few financial struggles later on, probably support some very worthy charities with both time and funding, then probably spend the rest of my time travelling, because I don't do enough of that already. So yeah, that's it. And like daughter, like mother, Roberta White said, I spend most of the year on holiday. And Jane Hodges is obviously in the most content place of all our listeners who decide to comment, because Jane just said, just do what I'm doing now. I don't think I'd change much, to be honest. What would you change?
I have complete control over my time. I'd spend more time with my friends.
Okay.
Because I don't spend a lot of time with my friends other than at school. If I didn't, because and I would I don't know.
See, what else are you going to do at your age, at 14? What else are you going to do apart from go to school?
Go out to hang out with friends.
Yeah. What?
Volunteer work.
Volunteer work? Yeah.
I could travel around the country.
What, like Jesus? I would roam the land. I would
and grace everyone with my presence.
I would roam the lands and turn water into wine instead of buying a beer like everybody else.
That's a bit much. I just buy myself a Fanta, mate.
I am under the age of drinking age, so I won't turn water into wine. I will turn water into Fanta. Okay, cool, and that's it.
Yeah.
That revelation that you want to be like Jesus surprised me at the end. But
you're the one who said Jesus.
Well, you went, I will roam the land.
Oh, you said Jesus.
So on that biblical related strange ending, that's it for another show.
Yeah.